but the English one.
All right, Sandra, I think we're ready for your introduction.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Sandra, and along with Anna, I'm going to be your Spanish interpreter for today, and I'm going to give you some instructions right now. Remember, this meeting will be recorded, so if you do not want to be on screen, please turn off your video now. And we are offering live interpretation in Spanish during this meeting and ASL interpretation. If you wish to hear Spanish interpretation, please click the interpretation button at the bottom right of your screen once we activate the function. Please remember, everyone must choose the language and you should not stay on the default of. And now I'm going to give these instructions in Spanish. Esta reunión está siendo grabada y si no desean ser grabados o salir en pantalla, por favor, apaguen su video. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación en vivo en español y en lengua de señas americana durante esta reunión. Si desea escuchar la interpretación en español, haga clic en el botón de interpretación que aparecerá una vez que activemos la función en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Verá un icono de globo. Si se está uniendo a través de la aplicación de Zoom para smartphone, elija su idioma haciendo clic en More en los 3 puntos o en la esquina inferior derecha de la pantalla. También seleccione interpretación del idioma o Language Interpretation y después elija Spanish y haga clic en Done. Si quiere escuchar solo a los intérpretes y no a los oradores originales, asegúrese de hacer clic en Mute Original Audio, que es silenciar audio original. Todos deben elegir un idioma, no debe quedarse en la posición de apagado predeterminada. Brad, we're ready to activate interpretation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Monica Solorio. I am the school counselor at the middle school. Welcome to our Canvas Parent University. I wanted to introduce our presenters. Our presenters for the middle school is Miss Julius, our IB coordinator. And we also have Mr. Diaz, who is our assistant principal. For the elementary, we have Miss Golens, who is our teacher librarian. And we also have Miss Finley, who is a 3rd grade teacher. Thank you everyone for being here. And I will also manage and be on the lookout for any questions that you have during the presentation so that we can answer the questions that you have.
Okay, it looks like we did have one person with their hand raised. Or maybe she unraised her hand. Let's see. It kept popping up in my screen that somebody had a question.
I don't see it anymore, but I will be on the lookout for that.
Okay, great. Okay, so, oh, she's saying sorry about that. Okay, great. All right, well, let's get started here. Okay. So Monica, I think you might have already, did you already mention this part about splitting up into 2 groups?
I did not.
Okay, so welcome. We're glad you're here. We will have, actually, you can ask, this is a slide from last year. So you can ask questions during this first part too, if you need to. And then we are halfway, well, after about 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to split into 2 groups so that we can better accommodate what's going on in Canvas with the elementary school and what's going on with Canvas in the middle school, because they're kind of used differently in both schools. And so we'll do that. We'll talk a little bit about what a learning management system even is. Talk a little bit about what Canvas is, and then we'll break into our groups. I think elementary school, there'll be a link on the screen for you to join a new Zoom at that time when we do that. Anything else anyone wants to say right now? Oh, okay, we're good. Okay.
I just want to add that we are recording. So if you have students in both elementary and middle school, you can go back and view the opposite presentation.
Okay, Jose.
All right, so first of all, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Mr. Diaz, the assistant principal, and also is an LMS, Learning Management System. It's obviously a long word there. It seems more confusing than it actually is, but basically it's just a software application used in the administration, documentation, tracking, and reporting of different educational programs, assignments, and so on. It's ideally what we want it to be is, as much as possible, a one-stop shop for you to help monitor what's going on with your student. And just a little bit of background, we started the process of exploring different learning management systems March 2020, right about when the pandemic had shut us down. We found that Google Classroom, although it's great, didn't provide all the necessary analytics and tools that we would like if we were anticipating at the time, and we weren't sure how long it was going to last, to be fully online. Back then, we probably anticipated maybe a few weeks. We all know how that turned out. So, but Canvas wasn't necessarily designed just for online schooling. It was designed for in-person learning. So there was a lot of adjustments throughout the pandemic, and we've had a few more adjustments, which we might be able to cover some of those tonight. But why Canvas? Besides the tools available, we have the ability to sync over 300 applications, and it's really designed for the continuum of education from K through college. A lot of schools online, not just the K through 12 spectrum, but also our collegiate students moved over to the Canvas platform from last spring up until now. Okay, but the next slide will probably do a better explanation than I just did.
Okay. I hope I enabled sound. So let's see. Let me know if you can't hear. Actually, I'm not sure there either. Oh yeah, there is talking in this one.
Meet Amy Pandison. Amy has 2 kids, Tucker and Jane. Tucker is in the 8th grade and loves world history. Jane is in the 3rd grade and enjoys science projects. Their school uses Canvas to facilitate student learning. Amy wants to be involved in her kids' education, not to do it for them, but to help them be successful and build confidence as learners. Amy wants to check their grades, view assignment due dates and the instructions, follow Amy and Tucker's calendars, and communicate easily with teachers. Amy hears about the Canvas parent app in an email from the school. Both kids' teachers use Canvas and want to make sure parents can easily stay connected. Amy searches for Canvas Parent in the App Store for her mobile device. After it downloads, Amy searches for her school district in the search bar. When she finds it, she then sees the option to sign in. Amy does not have her own Canvas account yet, so she selects Parents of a Canvas User, Create Account. She enters her name, her email address, and creates a password, but does not have a student pairing code. Tucker creates a pairing code from his account by opening his account settings from the global navigation bar. He selects Pair with Observer and gives that code to Amy. She can now see Tucker's classes and grades on the app's home screen. Jane is still in elementary school, so Amy gets her pairing code from Jane's teacher and easily adds it on the app. Now Jane is all set up with the Canvas Parent app as her sidekick in supporting her kids' education. To make sure she stays up to date on both kids' accounts, Jane sets up her alerts and notifications. On her phone or tablet, Amy selects Manage Students and then selects Tucker. She sets her preferences on when and about what she would like Canvas to alert her. She does the same for Jane. As Amy finishes choosing her notification settings, Jane comes bounding into the house without the coat she was wearing when she left for school. On the app, Amy opens her inbox, selects Jane's class, and sends a quick message to Jane's teacher about the missing coat. That night, before sitting down to dinner, Amy checks Tucker's classes and grades. He's doing pretty well. She also checks the calendar and notices that Tucker has a test coming up in a few days, and then helps Tucker organize his notes and create a study plan after dinner. she notices in her alert section an announcement about a field trip to the local museum for Tucker's world history class and a request for volunteer parent chaperones. Amy sends a quick message through the Canvas inbox to volunteer as a chaperone. Amy glances at the calendar and notices that Jane has a science project coming up. She looks at the assignment and notices a list of supplies and instructions for how to submit the assignment. Amy sets a reminder to buy the supplies. That night, Jane sits at the computer with Amy and they make a plan for Jane's project. Later that week, Amy helps Jane finish the project and helps her submit before the due date. After a long week of extracurricular activities, Amy sees a notification on her Canvas parent app about a missing assignment in one of Tucker's classes. She reads the instructions posted on Canvas and asks Tucker how she can help him complete the assignment. That night, Amy sits with Tucker and helps him upload a picture to submit his assignment. Even though the assignment is still flagged as late and Tucker lost some points, it's still turned in for grading. Like Amy Pandison, you can also support your students' learning and know what's going on in their academic lives. You can download it for free in your app store. You can also log on to Canvas as an observer through your web browser. Also, check out the Canvas guides for observers in the Canvas community.
Okay. Any questions about that so far? Just giving everyone a second in case they wanted to put something in. I don't think so. I'm going to move on. We can always address it as they come in. Okay, Mary, I think this is you.
This is me. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Finley, third grade teacher at the elementary school. And I used Canvas last year as a parent of a fifth grader. So I have experience on the parent side a little bit as well. I really found the parent app was super helpful. And also adding the student app was very helpful. The pairing example that went over is super important so that you compare your app to your student's account. These slides will be shared with you. So you'll be able to just kind of drill down where you click see video and you can just watch that video in case it wasn't clear or you needed a refresher. But as far as the student login, students have a few options. They can log in from their AEA email, and that's where they can get their pairing codes. And there's also a QR code. If you're setting up the app on a digital device, a handheld device or an iPad, something with a camera, you can use a pairing code. And that is probably the easiest way. There is also, you can switch. If you have multiple students, you can have multiple students in the app as well. And if your students, I don't know if middle school, I think they just have one Canvas account, but if they have different classes for their Canvas courses, then they can also manage those different course tiles in their student app as well. The method for logging in that we have found the easiest is when students go to their main Gmail account, there's, thanks for using the little arrow there, that little mosaic of squares. You can get to that through the apps little button. I call it a waffle. It's the array, 3 rows of 3 dots. And it looks kind of like a little waffle. So if you click on that waffle, you'll see a bunch of apps open up. It's where you might get like a Google Slides or a new app through your Google account, but Canvas is one of those apps. So, and you'll see that multicolored square. You can click that, and that's the easiest way because the students should go right into their course. If you use the website, you might have to log in with their username and login, and sometimes you forget that. So if you're struggling with that through the website, you can try the waffle to the colorful square login. That has been proven to be the easiest way. As far as the parent login, you'll need to scroll to the bottom of the AEA webpage, and you can get the pairing code from your child's teacher, or if you can log into your student's account from home using the account section and the settings link, you can get into the pairing code. I see a few questions in the chat about those pairing codes. Do you want the link just for that one video? Is that the pairing code video? Let me see if I can copy that into the chat real quick. Oops.
As a student, you can either go to account.
Here, I'll put that into the chat for everyone if you'd like to just see that pairing code link. That'll take you right in there. Okay. I think for that slide, that's what we have set out. Once you get logged in, and if you have multiple students, our next slide will kind of overview how to personalize your course tiles and also stay a bit organized with multiple students in the parent app. Miss Julius, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yes. Also, I keep putting in our email or our website, AEA CES for the elementary, and it keeps changing it to Abacus.
Oh, I was wondering what Abacus was.
It's supposed to be our website. Okay, so here's the next one.
So when you're organizing with multiple students, you may find that it's easier to rename it with your child's name, and you can customize that with the 3 horizontal dots in their course tile. So when you log in, there is a little dashboard, and if you click on the dashboard, you'll see different, you'll see your child's square course tile. And then there's, sometimes it's horizontal, but usually I think it's vertical, 3 dots. We call them the snowman. So I've got the snowman on the waffle for you. But if you click on that little snowman of the 3 vertical dots, then you should be able to change the name, the nickname. And if you want to say, you know, this is Tucker Pandersons or Jane Panderson, they're a very organized family. I'm sure they nicknamed theirs with their child's name. And you can also change the color so that you can see it a little more vividly. And you also can, if you happen to have in your Canvas course, you can change the order and move the order that the tiles come in. So those might be 2 helpful ways to help stay organized if you have more than one course or more than one child in the app.
Okay. Trying to get my, there we go.
All right, it's that time of the evening where we're going to be splitting up into our middle school and elementary school session. If you're staying with middle school, you're just going to stay in this webinar right here. If you're moving over to elementary, you're going to join us in a separate Zoom that I'm putting in the chat right now, and it has the link. It's going to ask if you want to leave this meeting and join the new meeting, and you're going to click leave and join. Okay, that's clear, and we'll see some of you in the next Zoom.
Okay.
So we will, I guess we'll move on. Oh, and we're going to skip over the elementary. I forgot we had everything together. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I know this might make the chat crazy, but if you could just put in the chat what grade level your student is, 6th, 7th, or 8th, just real quick, we could get kind of a into the chat. Okay. So we have okay, so we have several 6th graders too. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go over a little bit about the middle years program, is what the IB program is called in middle school, just a quick overview, because to understand how we're using Canvas, you have to understand a little bit about IB assessment and what we're studying in the middle school. So this is a graphic that's commonly used to talk about the middle school program. You'll see that they're at the center, just like in the PYP program, the elementary program. The IB learner profile is here, surrounded by approaches to teaching. Global contexts are the transdisciplinary units in the elementary school. Approaches to learning are the same through high school, and those are like the lifelong learning skills that kids are supposed to learn through school, like self-management, organization, communication, research, thinking skills, and be aware of those skills that they have. Concepts are big ideas in both the elementary school and the middle school that are timeless and help to organize our thinking and our learning. In the middle school, we have a community project that's like the exhibition in 5th grade. In 10th grade, which is actually the final year of the middle years program, there's a personal project. So, you have the exhibition in 5th grade, you move into a community project in 8th grade, the personal project in 10th grade, if you have a program that goes that long, which we will in a few years. And then in high school, it's the community, what's it called, Jose? It's a CAS project, but I forgot what that stands for. But it's essentially another community project with an essay and service hours and things, if I'm correct.
Are you talking about high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not CASPA. I forget off the top of my head, but it's very similar to.
Yeah, it's another big project. And then on the outside of this circle are the 8 subject areas, and they're considered equally important in IB. So language and literature, which is what we call English language arts, and in regular public school, mathematics. Language acquisition at our school is Spanish or German. Physical and health education, science. Individuals and societies is history or social sciences. Design and art. Okay, so to understand Canvas a little bit, you also have to understand how we assess students in the middle years program. And it's a little bit different than the primary years program. If you've been in an IB school, we start to assign descriptors to the students to describe how students are learning. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Are there any questions we need to address at this point, Ms. Delorio?
There aren't any questions right now.
Okay, I see a few hands raised, or I wasn't checking the chat. Okay, so let me see. That's really where we're going. All right, so this is a quick video. The music's a little annoying. There are no words, so you just read the text on the screen while it's going. This is a nice description of assessment and a little bit about how it's different than how traditional assessment is done in public schools. So it's about 3 minutes long, but it's got a lot of good information. So here we go. Oh, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Okay, I know that's a lot of information in a fairly quick video, but we will go through a little bit of it a little bit slower. And if we have more questions too, we can address those. I wanted to point out that on our AACMS website, there is a understanding IB grade here, grading in Spanish and English. It's not completely up to date. It hasn't been updated in a couple years. So it talks about our old, you'll see some subcategories or sublinks to manage back and a couple other things that don't actually apply anymore. But the main part of this is still the same. So this is another place to go to try to understand how kids are assessed in the middle years program. I wanted to point out that the video, to just reiterate that there are two kinds of tasks in the middle years program. So two kinds of work that kids do. F is formative. So think of that as soccer practice. You go to practice, you practice the skills that you're going to use for the game. So that's a lot of the classwork and any homework that goes home. A lot of that is all formative. And then there's a summative, and that is really game time for students. So that is taking all the things that you've learned and now demonstrating how well you can use them. And in IB, as they mentioned, we use a summative to help determine at that point in time how a student is progressing in the criteria. We typically do one summative per criteria per semester. So there's only one big project or one test that counts for each criteria. Remember, there are 4 criteria in each subject area. You can sometimes do a summative with more than one criteria at a time. So for example, in math, they might have an assessment that covers criterion A, which is knowing and understanding, and criterion C, which is communication. So they may be blended together and in the same assessment, or a teacher may decide to do 4 separate smaller summatives, usually towards the end of each semester, to try to gauge how well the kids have been learning throughout the semester. Typically, scores for summatives are posted about 2 weeks after the due date. When we get into Canvas, you'll see that a lot of work will show completed or incomplete, or may have a range of kind of, most teachers now are using a 0 to 8 scale to kind of gauge how to continue to line up with the assessment scoring system for IB. But typically all of it, it's just a teacher taking in the data, and then the summative is what really determines a student's final grade. Okay, so when you use Canvas with IB, it's a little bit like putting a square peg into a round hole. And so, and this is pretty much true for any learning management system that isn't particularly designed for IB, because IB grading is so different, and it is a sort of a standards-based grading system, but most learning management systems aren't. Their standard-based systems are not that robust. So we're constantly trying to tweak it and to make it so that it's easier for students to understand, for teachers to use, and for parents to see. So really, when you're looking at your student progress, the first couple things you want to check are the student's calendar, or the calendar you can see once you pair with your student, and the grading page. And so we'll look at these things in the next few slides. Okay, so there's just a couple screenshots of the calendar. When you enter Canvas, there's a global navigation that's on the left-hand side, and you'll see there's a calendar here. The student's account or your account will be here. The dashboard is where all the courses are. The favorite courses rise to the top of the dashboard, and then you can see all the courses in courses. But the calendar has a monthly view, it has a weekly view, and it has a daily agenda. You can also sign up to get a calendar feed into your Google, to your Google or to iCal calendars. So you'll see that the students' work will start to populate, or when a teacher assigns something, the due date of the assignment or the task is what will show up in the calendar. And so you can kind of get a monthly view of that. This year, teachers are trying to share information across. I mean, we always do this, but they're being even more careful this year just to not overwhelm students by having too many things due on the same day. So hopefully you won't see, 8 things due the last week of the semester, for example. There's a plus button in the calendar, so you can adapt the calendar. We try to encourage the students also to add their own agenda items or their own, if they have volleyball practice or they're going to the dentist one day or things like that, to practice keeping track and staying organized. This is one of those lifelong learning skills, being able to use a calendar in some form, either a written planner, which we also have, or using the Canvas calendar or using their phone at some point to keep track of what's going on in their lives. And we all know that's a good skill for all of us to have. So we're just trying to get them to do that a little bit. Okay, any questions so far?
Yes, there's a question about students. Oh, Mr. Diaz just answered it. So one of the questions was if kids need to bring their own computer. And it says, no, we have computers for all students.
Yeah, we do have, we have a cart of computers in every classroom. And then, once they log into their email on their Chromebooks, it's like their own personalized desktop and all their documents are there and their Canvas and everything. So that's good. All right. The other thing, just a couple of things about the calendar, you'll see that as a student turns something in and submits it, if it's going to be submitted through Canvas, it will cross it off here. So you'll know that this has been turned in. If you see something without it's not crossed off, it can mean that it hasn't been submitted in Canvas or it's missing, but you might want to just look at it, click on it, and investigate a little further before you, oftentimes middle school students do forget to turn their work in, but sometimes there's a different reason why. And one of the reasons is much more common this year because last year, of course, everything was turned into Canvas. Now that we're back in school, teachers are using Canvas. They're using it a fair amount, but not everything is turned in through Canvas. And so you'll see from the next slide, if I clicked on this, that the assignment was to complete the slides and you don't need to submit them into Canvas. So at this point, you can't really tell other than to ask your kid, hey, did you end up, I see that this isn't crossed off. Did you manage to get this turned in? And hopefully they did. There's a couple other places I want to show you where missing work is. So also when you're in a course, on this, there'll be like a global navigation off to the side, and then there's a course navigation bar farther into the right. And teachers turn off and on different things in the global navigation. So I've noticed today that some teachers are not making the assignments tab visible to students. I think every teacher I checked does have grades available for students to look at. So we're going to look at both these tabs. So if you click on if you happen to have a course that has the assignment tab enabled, you'll be able to see that there are overdue assignments, upcoming assignments, updated assignments, and past assignments. If your student doesn't have any overdue assignments, that means all their assignments are turned in. Okay. And then it'll just kind of show you what else has been going on in the class and what's coming up. So like that video mentioned about, okay, so March 11th, there's going to be a biology test. So then that biology test discussion. So you might want to mention it to your student or your child. Oh, hey, I saw that you might be having a biology test pretty soon. How is it going? So that would be one way to check in with your student. This student does have overdue assignments. So you'll see this whole overdue assignments will be missing if this section will just be not there at all if they don't have missing assignments. This student has 4 missing assignments. So this would be a good time to talk to that student about what happened with those assignments. again, this is sort of a screenshot of if a student has no overdue assignments, again, this title is the overdue assignments title is not there. So that's one thing to check with your students. Since we don't grade by percentages, we don't, enter grades in daily, letter grades, etc. You're going to want to track warning signs that your student may be struggling or they have missing assignments. That's the first thing you want to make sure is that they're turning in all their work on time. And even if it's late, that they're turning it in. We typically allow students, because we're looking at progression of learning over time. So you might not get it right away, what you're practicing. So we try to give students multiple opportunities to show what they know. And then also allow them extra time to get that to show us. So it may take them longer, but we still acknowledge before that summative, oh yes, you did, you got this, good job. So even if assignment is late, it's still good to turn it in. We don't take points off for missing assignments because there are no points. Okay, so the next part, again, this is just showing you, here's the global navigation. You go to courses, you find the course, and once you get into the course, here's the course navigation, and you would go to grades. So this is another great place to look for information about for your student. I noticed that because the students are not submitting as much, this is a slide from last year as well, they're submitting more through class, physically in class, or through just Google Docs without using Canvas. These icons sometimes don't pop up because they're not submitting through Canvas, but I just wanted, and it's a little overwhelming, but I wanted to just reassure you, these each have a meaning. So if you see these kinds of icons in Canvas, they typically mean, different things. So this is different types of submission. So for example, if assignment has this picture next to it, it means that a student is supposed to turn in a document file. This would be a discussion that the teacher has enabled a discussion board, and the student was meant to have a discussion online. This is a quiz. This is a text entry. So that's a text box that the student would respond directly into in Canvas and submit. They might link something they're looking at. This means that the score is hidden while the instructor is grading. And some external tools, so for example, I think if we were using BrainPop, for example, or something like that, it would just display a dash because it doesn't have a special icon for it. You'll also notice when you click on grades, you might see this a red button that says late. So that means it doesn't necessarily mean they didn't turn it in, but it's late, like it was meant to be turned in. And again, we don't worry about that too much. We just want kids to turn their work in, but Canvas will signal. I mean, the teacher does want to put a due date for when it should be in so that we all finish work in a timely manner as possible. But that way you just kind of know when it's due in the semester, because once you start learning something, then you're going to build on that learning. So you want to try to keep pace with what's going on in the class. How are we doing? Any questions so far? Should I pause again? We're good. Okay.
There is one question, Ms. Julius.
Yes.
Are there assignments that say at school students that are only for students at home?
That is a good question. I think maybe Mr. Diaz knows more about that, because I know that we try to establish some norms across the whole school. I think the IS students, they're grouped in right with the other students, and they're typically watching their classes all day. And I think that their coursework is pretty much exactly the same as the students. If it isn't, the teacher would be communicating with them how it's different, or how they would approach something, turning it in differently than the students in the classroom.
Sure. Yeah, that there might be some difference. It just depends on the teacher. You can always reach out and message the teacher about that, but there may be some assignments that are only for students online because, for example, if students in school are working on a group project, there may not be a way for the student at home to complete that. So they may get an alternative assignment, and Canvas allows you to assign 2 types of different assignments. So in that case, they may get a different assignment. But if you're not sure, reach out to the teacher and ask for clarification on what it is the student should be submitting.
Okay, so this is a screenshot from last year. I did want to, there are blue dots. These are grades, these are tests. So in Canvas, when a teacher does an assignment, they have to decide, they have to mark all the assignments not counting towards the final grade. And that is because the only grades that count towards the final grade to get the grade to show up correctly are the summative assessments in the criteria. So of course, all the grades count, all the work counts, because again, a coach watching a soccer practice is going to be watching how a kid is performing, and that performance counts. It depends on how much more time he's going to play in the game, or what position she's going to play on the field. So that all counts. But as assigning the final grade for IB and the way Canvas works with its system, we only account towards the final grade the 4 summatives in those 4 criteria for each class. So it, all the work counts, but the way that we calculate the grade in Canvas and then we didn't mention this, but we export the grades to PowerSchool. So learning management systems typically do not have a grade report system, a reporting system built in for like transcripts. So all the information gets exported to PowerSchool, and that's where we actually print our report cards. And you'll get report cards they're printed from PowerSchool. So in order to get all of that to work and talk to each other correctly, we mark them not counting towards final grade, but they count as part of the learning. Okay, so you might see these icons when something's been graded. You'll see this means the teacher gave a comment. This is some scoring details, and if there's a rubric attached to the assignment, the rubric will be here as well. And these scores this was created before teachers were following the 0 to 8. So that's why those scores look higher than 8 points. Okay. I think I do want to show this video. It's another 3 minutes. So there are 2 types of numeric scoring in the middle years program, and neither one, again, the numbers are not percentages or points necessarily. They're just a designation for a description. So it's much easier to say you have a 4 than to rattle off the paragraph that describes the learning that the child is demonstrating. So it's a shortcut. The number is a shortcut to the description of how a child is doing. There are 2 types of grading systems in the middle years program. So remember, we talked, there's 4 criteria in each subject level. So in any subject area. So in each criteria, a student can get a 0 to an 8 in that criteria. At the end of the grading period, which is really at the very end of the school year, but we do kind of in January, we do report out a final grade, but the final grade isn't until the spring. It's on a 1 to 7 scale. So those 4 criteria get added up and compared to this IB grading point range, and then a 1 through 7 score is assigned. So this video kind of explains the rationale behind that. And so I'm going to go ahead and it also talks a little more about the descriptors that go with the numbers. So I do want to show it. Are there any questions before I show the video? Okay, here we go. Okay. There's something I wanted to point out, but now I can't remember. Oh, I made this slide just to show you. Okay, so this is in math, for example. They mentioned criteria and criterion strand descriptors. So these are the strands. So we talked about a criterion, for example, criterion A in math is knowing and understanding. And remember, there's 4 criteria. There's an A, B, C, and D. I'm just highlighting 2 here. So keeping in mind that teachers are keeping all of this, they are keeping track of this as well. So they have criterion A, and this is at the end of year 3, which is 8th grade. Students should be able to. So under knowing and understanding, this is really what the teacher is looking for. Can a student select appropriate math when solving problems in both familiar and unfamiliar situations? Can they apply the selected math successfully when solving problems? And can they solve problems correctly in a variety of contexts? And so their 0 through 8 score, there's a descriptor, which I did not put here because it's wordy, but essentially it's the same, only just like the video showed, do they do this well? Do they do this to a limited degree? Do they do this of good quality, exceptional quality? Remember, a 4 is good, produces good quality work, essentially. So when you see a 4 out of 8 in your student's assignment, in their grades, that means that they produced good work. And typically we also think of a 4 as at grade level. So they're performing, it's not 50%, it's not an F. 4 out of 8 is not 50%. 4 out of 8 means you are doing good work. Okay, so a lot of times people, students and parents will kind of freak out if they see a 4 out of 8, because that's in our old way of doing things, the traditional way most of us parents were brought up, that's 50%, and that's not good enough. But in IB it is, because it doesn't mean 50%, it means that you're doing good quality work. So here's another example, communicating in math. So at the end of year 3, students should be able to do these things. I'm not going to read through them, you can just kind of glance through them. So keep in mind, each criterion has between 1 and 4 or 5 strands. And teachers are expected to cover all the strands in all the criteria every year. So at least twice a year at our school. The MYP program requires at least once in the whole year. And our school, we expect teachers to cover all the strands of all the criteria every semester in their coursework. So, so kids get a lot of practice, hopefully. Okay. Back to the gradebook. Again, these are funny little icons that you're going to see in, or not, hopefully not see in the gradebook. A check means that a student turned something in and it's completed. This would be a grade shown by the number of points. So you will see this, you'll see it something out of 8 often. In 7th grade science, I think Mr. Cross uses a 1 or a 0 for all of his formative assignments. Most teachers are using the 0 through 8 in their formative, if they're actually going to put a grade in the grade book for a formative assignment. An X is an incomplete grade, so that means it didn't get turned in. So when you see X's in the grade book, you need to ask your kids about those. You should not see a letter grade, or a GPA scale, or a grade shown as percentages. So if these things are happening in the grade book in the courses that your kids are in, you can let me know, or Mr. Diaz know, or the teacher know. But you need, the teacher just doesn't have their grade book set up correctly. I'm pretty sure all of our teachers this year have things set up correctly, and so they're not showing letter grades or percentages. This is an excuse. So sometimes, the teacher will excuse an assignment for whatever reason. And the dash again means the grade was submitted in a different way, and you can't really tell if it's been submitted or not from the grade book. And here again are these lovely buttons, late or missing. So the missing especially is the one that's concerning. This one looks like it got turned in. This one did not get turned in. So the missing again is, you really want to keep track of those with your kids.
There is one caveat to the missing on this, because some teachers are, so sorry, let me back up. When teachers create an assignment, they're looking for a type of submission usually. Right? Teachers are being lenient this year, or accommodating. Sometimes a student needs an assignment turned in as a hard copy rather than through Canvas. So in that case, Canvas is looking for an assignment to be turned in, but if the student handed in physically or in another way, the student may still receive a score instead of that dash, but Canvas will still say it's missing because there's nothing that was turned into Canvas itself. So just be aware, if you're not sure if that assignment is missing or not, if it's missing and there's no score, the assignment is missing. If there's missing and a score, the assignment has been turned in, it's just been graded offline.
Good point. They covered this a little bit in the video as well. I just wanted to show it again a little bit in the slower motion. In general, so I put adequate here, but the all the videos we looked at so far, it's good. So adequate, it's at grade level. So again, you see 3s and 4s on your students' work. That is at grade level. In the old traditional letter grading, we talk about that being a C. So we don't like to compare the two because we think letter grades are so much more ambiguous than IB descriptions and criteria. But if you want to kind of think about it that way and you need to, then it's around like a C. However, I would say that a 5, 6 is kind of like an A or an A plus, and then 7 and 8 is above that. So, it doesn't quite match up. It just because of the specificity of the descriptions. I'm not going to read this, but I wanted you to see. So this was the final grading scale. So after you add up those 4 criterion, the points in the 4 criterion, then this is how the final grades are configured. And so you can see these, you can see that the verbs at the beginning are really what you're paying attention to. So if a student gets a final grade of a 1, they just have shown very limited quality on their work. Same with a 2, 3 becomes acceptable. 4 produces good quality work, generally high quality work, produces high quality. And then there also starts to be some descriptors that say some unfamiliar real world situations. So this is really one of the key differences between, like, say, a 4 or a 5 or 6 or 7 final grade is, yes, can they do something they've practiced in class, but now can they apply what they've learned in an unfamiliar situation? And that's usually, hopefully, in a good summative assessment that a teacher has designed, it's providing that opportunity for students to show that they can apply their skills in an unfamiliar situation. And that's really a lot of what a 6 or 7 demonstrates, if a student scores that high in a final grade. I think we talked about this already. This was more for last year when, this may still be applicable at home, but this is if you aren't able to use a computer or you're away from wireless, the student app, kids could easily turn something in from taking a picture and turning it in of their schoolwork. It's easy to see the calendar and the to-do list in the calendar, in the dashboard. Parents in their app can see an overview of Canvas, the assignments and the announcements, and communicate with a teacher. However, parents cannot turn in work for a student in the parent app. So that's kind of the main difference between those two. It's worth having, I think, the parent app on your phone if you like using your phone and you have one. It's a good way to check on things. Where to find more information? Again, in our Albert Einstein Charter Middle School website. That's where these slides will be available. I'm not sure exactly when, hopefully by tomorrow. I'll send a reminder to get the slides up, and I think this is also being recorded. So the slides will be here. I think everything's under Canvas login and distance learning resources. It's a red button on this side of the website. That's also where you can find the information about pairing with your students' courses, how to log in, the student logins there, all of that. And again, the students are their Gmail, their AEA student account is their password email for Canvas. And it's you can't just go to canvas.org or whatever and put in their Gmail and password. They need to go through our portal. So that's either they log in Chromebook, like we talked about before, and they go to the little waffle and they find the Canvas app, or sometimes the first time before they've ever logged into Canvas from their computer, you need to go through the website and just click on the student login, and it will take them in right away if they're logged into their AEA student account. There's no password or username they have to enter in. So I think that is it. Do we have any more questions or comments? Okay. Oh. Well, I hope that was a little bit helpful. Again, so your pairing number, you have to ask your student to go to their account, and they go to their profile at the top and click on that, and it'll say get a pairing code for an observer, and then they give you that code, or you can watch them while they do it, and that's where the code comes from. Correct, Jose?
Yes, that's correct. And if there are any questions that come to mind, please email our support email. I think you have that on the next slide, possibly,
Oh,
Corey.
do I?
I don't remember if it was on the next one or previous one, but there is a tech support email. I can also drop it into the
Yeah,
chat.
maybe just drop it into the chat, because I don't think.
Support at the support at aeacs.org.
Yeah. So I know that's a little overwhelming, especially if you haven't had any experience with IB assessment as we move into the middle years program and then into the high school. So it takes a little bit of getting used to and changing your thinking about grading a little bit. And make sure if you have any questions, email your teachers or email Jose or I or support, and we'll try to get your questions answered. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Glad you were here. Okay, well, I think we're done. So we'll say good night. And we'll look forward to seeing your kids tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, thank you.